Welcome back to Talk 21. It's your host, Sam Genova, alongside my co-host.
Hi, I'm David Vitti. Welcome back. And we have today Adam Wilson, one of our agents. First time on a podcast, right?
First time on the podcast. Happy to be here.
Good.
Awesome to have you.
And so I was petrified, and I still am about cameras and all that. But I think you're going to be handling this way better than I ever did first time around.
You guys are very calming.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Right.
So basically, we focus on both residential and commercial here in the office. And Adam actually lives in the Junction, so he does predominantly a lot of farming and works in the area predominantly, which is good. That's what, like most agents in the past, like traditional roles where you kind of work and you become an area specialist. And Adam's kind of been doing some of that stuff. He's been working here in the Junction on Dundas Street. And again, we're all experiencing a bit of a weird time with regards to dealing with properties and how we're selling things and negotiating things and so on and so forth. So I thought to bring Adam on and to talk to us a bit more of the commercial sides, because we seem to always talk about residential. We always talk about what rates are doing and how people are reacting and employment, and some of the commercial segments are more of not the middle class. They own properties and they're a bit more sophisticated buyers and sellers. With that being said, go ahead, Adam. Tell us a little bit what you've been experiencing. Tell us a bit about what's going on here in the Junction and where you're seeing the market going with regards to commercial, because you've been focusing a little bit more on that.
Yeah, sure. I do deal with some strictly commercial, but a lot of the commercial properties that I work with are in fact residential multi-unit investment properties,
Right.
which is still on the commercial side. And yeah, it's an interesting market with all the uncertainty over the past number of years, and interest with difficult interest rates, more difficulty getting financing. Investors are, of course, driven entirely by return on investment,
Right.
as opposed to the emotional appeal of a property. So it's a little bit of a different market, and it's taken some time for I think sellers to adjust their expectations to bring things in line with what investors are looking at. And one of the challenges I think that a lot of sellers are facing is they purchased these multi-unit residential investment properties years ago, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
Right.
20 years ago. They had at significantly different prices than
Right.
what properties are worth today. So they've got no problem affording their mortgage. They have a low mortgage. They've rented their properties out at what might have been market rates at the time, but perhaps haven't kept up with increases, or even if they have, rents may not be where they need to be today for an investor to look at that property today at today's prices, which may be 2, 3, 4 times the price that property was purchased at. And so the reality is there's an affordability problem that is sometimes difficult to breach or overcome. And so that's one of the challenges with the multifamily. With multifamily properties, but that said, I think one of the differences with investors versus families is investors are always looking.
Yeah.
And
So they're looking at it's more numbers, right? They're looking on the return on the investment.
Opportunity.
So when you were saying about the rents, if the rents are so low, the original owner of that house doesn't really care because he has no mortgage.
It's fine for them.
Yeah, but when you go to sell it and you want to capitalize on what the real estate is worth today, the numbers don't shake out properly because the rents are so low. So when a current frugal buyer looking to build a portfolio of a property that you got maybe listed, you're having a hard time selling it because it doesn't have the right number, the return on that investment. You can't get all this money on the sale price knowing that the income's not that there, and it could get there, and that's why you told me you were dealing with trying to put new tenants in place at market rents or renegotiating terms with commercial tenancies possibly, or whatever the case may be. So
Yeah.
just to interject, sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of selling an investment property or representing sellers. Representing sellers who are owners of investment properties is there's a lot of pieces involved, and it's not as simple as making the property look nice, open houses, and having buyers come and fall in love with the property itself. Even though many of these properties are gorgeous with curb appeal and all of that stuff, it's just not the decision process is different for investors, and it's one of the challenges now. I don't want to make it sound like it's all challenges, because these properties are selling.
Of course.
And that's what I was saying about the fact that investors are always looking. And there are a lot of very good properties out there that do make financial sense, or properties that have enough vacancies already already there that it's not that big of a task for an investor to come take over a property, and they just have to deal with perhaps a couple tenants that are still there at low rents, and it's easier to work out negotiations with those tenants. But yeah, as a realtor, one of the jobs in these types of scenarios is often negotiating with the tenants and trying to change the financial viability of an investment scenario. And a lot of property owners, sellers, never got into the business wanting to be a negotiator, or a lot of owners, they tell me, I'm not greedy. I'm happy. I'm paying my mortgage. These are excellent tenants. They take care of the place, and these are all of their selling features for a potential buyer. And those are great. It's just it sometimes takes some education to help a seller understand that those are not the primary factors that are going to help the sale of the property. But you know what? There's a lot of excellent investment properties out there. I've got a couple really good financial opportunities listed right now. They're multifamily residential, and so each property is different, but it takes work. It takes also putting together the effort to present that property in a financially understandable way. Working out pro forma financials so that a potential purchaser can very quickly and easily see what their potential return on investment is, if there's going to be renovations that are going to take them to that financially viable place. Show them what the actual projected cost would be for the types of renovations that would be required to get that property up to a place where they could attract significantly improved rents, and look at and do all the calculating of what the cap rate, net income divided by the purchase price would be for them under those different scenarios. And that can help a lot in sort of getting the ball across the line for a busy investor who doesn't have time to do that with every single property that they look at.
I feel like I touch on some commercial properties too, and I feel like when we're on residential properties, we're like talking to sellers and how to make their property better looking and so on and so forth. When it comes to doing commercial, I feel like there's a disconnect that sometimes a seller looks at like what their neighbor sold for, and look, they got so much more money. How can my property be worth this much when this guy got this much? And I feel like I'm trying to educate them to say, listen, well, this one has a brand new roof. They have all brand new windows. These got brand new leases in place. They're paying like double what your rent roll is. Yeah. So I feel like they're like looking to get what the neighbor got, which is what somebody would do in residential. Mm-hmm. And you're not really looking at the big picture. You need like $500,000 to bring your building up to snuff, and your rents are down. So back to the return on the investment, it's down. So it's hard to get the money you want. So do you wait and do all these changes, flip out some tenants, get some more proper market rents, and then go to market? And that's the stuff I navigate with, like when it comes to like buildings and dealing with vendors. And then on the flip side, when you're doing with buyers, like I'll talk about like a good building that like it's priced a lot. It's more than a neighboring building, and the cost per square foot's more, or the cap rate's really shitty, pardon my language, or low. You start saying to them, but the thing is, this building has everything. It's done. You got market rents. It's fully renovated. You don't have to put a penny into it. So the cap rates are not a little lower now, but in the long run, you got less headaches. You got market rents already, and you don't have to reset. So like that's the difference, and I guess that's what you're saying. And the biggest one that the takeaway from you, like lately, you've been doing deals where you're actually renegotiating and negotiating tenants out of buildings, which is keys for cash, cash for keys. Yeah. So like there's a lot of that going on, because like, to get tenants out, to get market rents, it's hard. So like we're not just dealing with just real estate and buyers and sellers. The biggest challenge now is we're dealing with tenants, and tenants have become a big bone of contention with a lot of landlords trying to get better rents, trying to people are in buildings not paying, and rental properties not paying. So that's been another part. So not only we're dealing with buyers and sellers, but the bigger part is dealing with tenants, being able to show properties. So I don't know, maybe you can talk a bit about that, but I've seen that as a big problem as an owner of investment properties myself, and trying to sell them and buy them for people. That tenants have been a big concern and a big stumbling block for me. So I don't know. I was very surprised when you told me you were working and doing some of that. So maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a challenging legal environment for residential investment property owners, right, who have residential tenants in their properties. The landlord and tenant board is very tenant favorable, right, which hey, I mean, God bless the tenants. They need places to live, but it's very challenging for an owner of a property, because they actually because of the regulations, an owner of a multifamily residential investment property doesn't have full control over their ability to improve their business, and most businesses have the ability to pivot, to change their strategy, to increase prices as necessary, make all kinds of adjustments as required to improve the financial viability of their business. And that's what it is. As a property investor, you're running a business, right? So there are a number of scenarios where tenants can be legally removed from a property that are available to landlords, but most of them aren't practical, and in most cases, probably the easiest pathway and the safest pathway is to reach a mutually agreed financial agreements with the tenants that are in place, to have them agree to leave. And investment property owners look at that, and a lot of them balk, because it's what I have to pay my tenants this amount of money to get out of my unit, and that's it's a surprise for a lot of owners who just haven't adjusted to that mindset yet. But here's the reality. If you have a tenant in your unit that's paying, let's say, $1,000 less than market rent, which is very common in these days in a lot of properties, that's not just the difference of $1,000 per month. That's potentially the difference of hundreds of thousands of dollars in the purchase price of the property. Yeah. And the way that an investor is going to look at that difference between what a tenant is paying and what market rate is they're going to take that number, that difference between market rent and what they're actually paying. They're going to multiply that by a year. So let's say you've got $1,000 a month difference.
20 units.
So you've got that comes out to $12,000 per year.
Yeah.
An
for one unit.
For one unit.
So if you have multiple units, multiplied by however many units, hypothetically.
Well, yeah, that comes next. But just on that one unit, the way that an investor is going to value that is they're going to use their required cap rate, and they're going to divide against that difference in market rent for that 1 year. So $1,000 difference per month, which is $12,000 per year. If an investor has a required cap rate return of say 5%, they're going to take that $12,000, divide it by 12, and come up with something like $250,000. That's the difference in value to them on the value of that property.
Yeah.
So you get a couple tenants like this, or you say 12, whatever. You get a couple tenants, now you're talking about a $500,000 difference.
In the purchase price,
four tenants in that scenario, $1 million off the property. But even then, it's not so simple, and it could be an even bigger difference in the price of the property when an investor is looking at that scenario, trying to calculate how much they're going to have to pay that tenant themselves. Like if the seller's not willing to do the negotiations themselves, and when I'm working with a seller, I'm obviously doing the negotiations for them.
With the tenants, you mean?
With the tenants, yeah. But if a seller's not willing to do that, and a lot of sellers say to me, listen, Adam, I've got great relationships with my tenants. I don't want to interfere with anything. A buyer can come in, they can do what they want, but I'm not going to facilitate that.
Right.
That's a major problem, unfortunately, because what that does is it leaves this huge question mark in a buyer's mind. It's not quite as simple as for a buyer to say, oh yeah, well, I'll probably just have to pay the tenants X amount, whatever the budget is. They're going to multiply that by several times. So for example,
it's because of the unknown, because they don't know, right? So they're going to err on the side of caution. Yeah, they're going to err on the side of caution. They're going to say, well, to get rid of this tenant, it's going to cost me this amount, and then I got to find a tenant. There's going to be some vacancies, and so there's a lot of factors. So,
for example, in one property that I recently worked with, the total budget to remove all the tenants was about $300,000. Investors were looking at that scenario and saying, I'm not going to discount the price by $300,000. I'm going to discount the price by $1.5 million.
Yeah, so it's huge.
So you ended up selling it vacant?
Most units were negotiated on that particular property. Most of the residential units were negotiated vacant, and then when the purchaser came in, I also stepped in with them and assisted to negotiate the remainder out. Yeah.
So this
multi-res is amazing. It's a lot of work, but that's part of the process.
It's definitely beyond the scope of what normal realtors used to do in the past. So this is where, when they say, oh, are we adding value? This is huge. This is a huge asset to have an agent that's working on your side, because it's not about posting a property for sale and screening buyers and
it's all
showing
about dollars.
You're working, but you're working with tenants. That's like you said. Some people are so
it's
complacent.
a different kind of tenant, obviously. It's a different kind of a tenant.
Residential tenants could be a nightmare, and some of them could be great, but oftentimes there's the perfect mix is never there. There's always, they're great tenants, but they don't pay much. Of course, they're great tenants. You know what I mean? You're supposed to be paying $2,500 a month. You're paying $1,500. Back to the same. So they're great tenants, and to the guy who owns a property, he bought a long time ago, so it doesn't matter. He doesn't have a mortgage or a very small mortgage. But how am I going to sell that to somebody who's going to give you top dollar if you don't have a better tenant making the difference? So that's why it's if you get an older seller, you're gonna have these challenges, and to only make it attractive, is to increase the return on the investment. And that
Simply
means-
because they don't care. So like they don't have this
care.
pressure of making rent.
But they do care about getting top dollar for their property right now. And and that's why we got to educate them. Say, listen, I know you want top dollar, but the numbers don't make sense with today's mortgage rates. And people are like, it just doesn't make sense. I can't get you all this money because your income is so horrible.
Right.
So the only way we got to boost up the income, which is what somebody like Adam's like thinking a bit like when we talk about outside of the box. You're saying, okay, so somebody just would have said, you know what, you're never going to get this money. Like you got this is your rent roll. You want to get 2.5 million, you're only going to get 1.8 maybe or 1.6. But if you had better rent, you would get more. And then you would just walk away if they don't want to list it with you for 1.8, hypothetically, right?
Sure.
So now somebody like Adam is saying, look, no, let's educate the seller. Like this is how to get this kind of money. You can, but you got to do this, and that, and you got to get rents up. And then it becomes more attractive,
Well,
right?
what's your last takeaway for
so
the
what,
audience?
so I was going to say, so it's not like I'm going to paint the walls. You got green walls. We're going to paint them white, and it's going to look fresh, and we're going to get top dollar. It's totally a different animal.
It's all about the dollars.
And,
So
I think
what's your last
the good
takeaway?
news for sellers, the really good news for sellers is that there is a pathway. And that's, and it does take negotiation. It does take creativity.
Right.
And a lot of sellers are not willing or capable of facilitating that process themselves, but that's where realtors come in.
Yes.
And we're the experts on being able to navigate these scenarios. For a seller, a lot of that is emotional. For me, when I go in there, I'm a professional, neutral third party. It doesn't faze me when a tenant is yelling at me.
Yeah.
I'm doing my job. I'm
trying to facilitate it.
Yeah, a seller does not want to walk into a tenant's unit with an N12 notice or something else and get blown up on. There was a property that I was working with, not too long ago, where it was a very nice tenant, excellent tenants, paying under market, and we had to serve them notice. There was a pathway. There was a pathway to do that in this particular case, as opposed to a cash for keys scenario. I walked in, I served the notice, and I took about 10 minutes of vicious personal verbal attacks. Yeah. And that's just. That's what it takes. Now it wound up in that scenario that we wound up pivoting and making a cash for keys agreement in order to make that scenario work. Right. This doesn't have to. Sellers don't have to compromise on the big number that they want. They just have to be willing to let an experienced realtor negotiator come in and to help them reach the place with their property where those numbers can effectively be gotten in a sale. I think it's really important for a seller to trust their realtor. Yeah. If you're going to hire a realtor, make sure to trust that realtor, trust their advice, my interests are 100% in maximizing seller returns when I'm representing a seller, and I have a pathway to get there. It may not be the most comfortable for the seller, but I'll do it for them. You know. The other thing to realize for sellers is that they don't necessarily have to have that cash to pay the tenants up front. That money can come out of the proceeds of the sale.
On closing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of options. Right. Yeah, for sellers.
So in closing, Sam Genova is still on the podcast.
I'm here. Just listen to him.
Sometimes
it's excellent. Probably one of the best we've ever had.
We don't have to talk. We just listen.
Sometimes when somebody's telling us things,
valuable information.
Listen to the story.
Well, that was. I think that was very insightful. Like, I mean, we do a lot of all this, but like this is another angle. Like when Adam came to me and says, "Look, I'm gonna be doing this," and we had to discuss a few things regarding this matter. I thought, wow, I can't believe you're even doing this. Like this is I haven't done it. I tell my clients, and I tell my clients that we have to get better rents, and I can help them. But at that time, like because of the confidence is down, they say, you know what, I'm going to leave it alone. If I can't get the money right now, they don't want to deal with it because they have good relationships with their tenants, and that's been a big stumbling block. But if you can sit down and say, listen, I can get you the money you want. Let me deal with these tenants. They don't look like the bad guy. You look like the bad, not look like the bad guy. You're the one negotiating, right?
Here's the fun thing, and I love this part of the business, and one of the reasons why I love it is because you're dealing with so many interesting personalities, but there is a way to do it without being the bad guy.
Yeah.
And with our skills as realtors, we have that ability to negotiate in a way that is not offensive and that is still respectful of who the tenant is as a person, what their realistic challenges are, and bringing all of the facts of the matter to the table. The reality is when a tenant is confrontational or a tenant is resistant, it's all out of fear, right? And so as negotiators, we're good at building relationships and calming fears, and it's all about just as in any sale negotiation, it's all about ensuring that each side has what they need to feel comfortable.
Right.
Moving forward.
Managing expectations and making sure people are comfortable. Like that's what we're trying to bring them to, right?
And
Interesting.
There's one last expectation that I've encouraged to always say at the end of this. And Sam, you know what it is right there at that camera.
Yep. You can find me at Sam General Real Estate.
And I'm David Vitti. You can find me at C21 Fine Living Realty.
My name's Adam Wilson, realtor at Century 21 Fine Living Realty, and you can find me on my website, adamwilson.com.
Instagram?
No Instagram. Go to my website.
Until next time, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.